The hiatus is over. War is at an end. I have returned. I no longer have the plague. I mostly no longer have the plague. I'm a little bit hoarse here and there and still have a slightly bunged up nose. But other than that, I am well enough to continue with the Podscast. Welcome to said podcast, the Podscast with me, Poddy Wilson. That's my podcast. The Podscast, episode 10. And having just said welcome back to me after the hiatus, I have to forewarn you that another hiatus is pending because I had the plan anyway from the get-go that I would try and do 10 episodes as a compact series and then see how I feel from there. And I've really enjoyed it so far, but I think I need to do all the other things I have lined up in my calendar, which actually would pay me for the time being, and then circle back to this, I think in a different format. I think much as the diary podcast is very convenient for what I'm doing now, I think what I'm now interested in, having established the fundamental basics of things like editing and uploading and managing a social media account for it, etc., is that I now want to do something that does actually require a little bit more brain power and planning and scripting and research, all those kinds of things. So this has been a great first series for what I wanted to do with it. It will be most likely different if/when I continue it, but I do have plenty of exciting things coming up in the next couple of months. So it will be a hot minute before we return to the set format. Now, I don't want to turn you off immediately. We've just started the podcast and immediately I'm telling you that it's not going to be here for a while. I don't want you to be like, oh, well, what's the point? What's even the point in carrying on? No, stay with me because I've got a lot of news. I want news because I've not been here for a little while, a little hot minute. So I've got things that I want to talk about, and I also made no notes of them over the course of them happening. So there's no like chronological listing. Normally I list it by day, and that really helps me out. And I also list things that I've just been thinking about. I've not listed any of those things because I forget what I think about as soon as I think it, unless I write it down. So it's all just things that happened rather than things I thought. It's not going to be very meditative, but that's okay because it has actually been quite a jam-packed fortnight on top of me not being very well. I also want to address, before we get into the titles, I want to address the outfit because I really like it, but I'm just aware that it's bordering on Treasure of the WI, which, to add insult to injury, I also made jam by myself, homemade, for the first time this week. So I really am leaning into the full Calendar Girls aesthetic here, but I like it because it's grandma dress and it keeps her close, and that's lovely. And I'll be relishing the opportunity to wear quite a lot of grandma clothing in the upcoming couple of weeks for an exciting reason, which if you follow me on social media you'll now be well aware of. Dangling participle, didn't like that at the end of the sentence. Anyway, all that's coming. I'm getting very overexcited because I've not been here in a while, and also it's sunny outside, so I want to do this sharpish, get all my information out there stats so I can go and sit outside because it's 4 p.m. and the sun is looking really inviting, and I procrastinated this all day. And we don't need to know all this. You don't need to know all this. Roll titles for the final time in the series. I'm aware that I'm coming in quite hot on this. I also want to do the other admin thing of addressing the new participant in the studio today, because obviously we've had the chicken the whole time here. We have had Feathers McGraw in the studio the whole time, but we now have a new friend. We have a Snoopy, and a Snoopy, look at them, they're spooning. That's fucking adorable. A Snoopy has his little backpack and his explorer hat on because he's been on a big adventure, because he is from America. Fact check that, he's possibly from Canada. I can't remember specifically where Kieran got him from, but he was one of my presents coming back from America, which is very sweet. He went to some kind of, Kieran, this is not a Snoopy. Kieran went to some kind of place that had a lot of Snoopy memorabilia, I think, that was within a theme park. Not sure. And he's gonna tell me afterwards. He'll correct me on this factoid. But he got a few Snoopy things for various members of his inner circle. So I have my Snoopy, and his mum has a Woodstock, which is very sweet. And Jordan also has a Hot Wheels that is Snoopy's little kennel, and that's lovely. So we all have our Snoopy things. We also have little gifts from Buc-ee's, which I'm too English to know anything about. I've never heard of Buc-ee's before. I don't recognise the iconography of it. It's a beaver logo that apparently is very iconic. And Kieran sent me a photo of what it looks like in the shop. It looks horrible. It looks so busy and rammed full of people. It looks like Primark the week before Christmas. It looks like a sweat fest. Not for me. But he did bring me back a very nice bikini top that I sense is probably more a gift for him than it was a gift for me. Anyway, Kieran is back. That's big news number one. He's back from America and I got to do the lovely rom-com bit. This is great for me. Great obviously for him to be back and, you know, with his loved ones, whatever, and getting his work back into his regular schedule and, you know, seeing everyone that he loves, blah, 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 blah. It's not about him. It's not about him. It's about me because I got to have my rom-com moment with going to the airport to pick him up, which I've always wanted to do. In theory, I've always wanted to do that. I think it's a very sweet idea to go and pick up your loved one from the airport and have a bouquet. And I got sunflowers because they're his favourite flowers and they're tall and golden and massive, just like him. So that's sweet. So I had his sunflowers ready and I was already like crying when I got there and people were looking over in the arrivals lounge going, oh, wasn't that really sweet? Oh, look, she's there waiting for someone. That's really nice. A few people did the bit of being like, oh, you got me flowers you shouldn't have. So that, you know, it was a community effort. It was really building the anticipation for him to arrive. But actually the reason I was crying in the first place, and this is why I put emphasis on it being nice in theory, whereas not so much in practice, is because airports are hell. They're a hellscape. Ooh, ugh, who designed that parking system? That's awful. Now, as we know, over the course of this podcast, my confidence in my own driving has been augmenting tenfold. I have ameliorated at a rate of knots. Tongue twister, say that 10 times. Ameliorated at a rate of knots. Ameliorated at a rate of knots. That's quite hard. Anyway, I've ameliorated at a rate of knots. But that almost was undone in its entirety by just how awful the car park situation at the airport was. I am unfortunately not gifted enough in the value and the quality of common sense to understand which lane I was supposed to be in at any point. I always panic with lanes. Lanes are my real Waterloo. If there's too many lanes, I shut down. I don't fuck with too many lanes going into a roundabout because I like the simplicity of a roundabout. You just give way to the person on your right. That's simple enough. But as soon as you start adding all these lanes, particularly when there's tons of traffic and everyone's kind of at a standstill, so you're like, well, I need to be 4 lanes over. How the fuck am I going to do that when there's no gaps because we're all completely static? Anyway, that's by the by. I panic when it comes to lanes. That's what I'm trying to say. And there were so many lanes, too many lanes at the airport, and I couldn't work out which one I was supposed to go to. Is it short stay? Is it drop off? Is it blah, 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 blah. Couldn't work out. There's too many that all sounded very similar, and then they were like, if it's under 15 minutes you have to go here, and I was like, well, surely that's me. No, wrong. But even though I was only there for less than 15 minutes, actually, was that true? No, I ended up actually being there a bit longer. But either way, I thought I was only going to be there for 15 minutes, and that could have been the case. But it confused me so much. And I wound up being stuck in this lane. And then I'm like, fuck, there's concrete bollards on either side, so I can't switch to the other lanes now. I'm stuck in this one. And then I'm like, well, how do I get out? How do I get out? And you just have to follow it around. It's a one-way system. There's no way you can do a U-E and then go back and switch onto the right lane. You are stuck on the wrong track, Buster. You're on the log flume to hell. There's no getting off. Keep your arms inside the vehicle at all times, except for get to the end and guess what? Pay £7 to not even stop at all for a second. That's rotten behavior. I want to know who is pocketing the money from that. Who, Mr. Airport? It's got to be a man. Who is it that owns the airport that's pocketing the money? Because that is rancid and rotten behavior, and I do not fuck with it. I think it's bad. Anyway, so that was why I was crying to begin with, because I had to do the full loop and I was getting really confused, really het up, hot under the collar, sweating. My hair was obviously stuck to my lips and that was making me stressed, as it always does. Hair loves to stick to your lips when you're already massively overstimulated. So I was already on the phone crying to Kieran. I was like, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I was supposed to pick you up in this really romantic way and be super cool, calm, and collected. No, I was overwhelmed and overstimulated and I was already crying by the time I got to the arrivals lounge, which that was not entirely within my vision board for my romantic rom-com pick up at the airport moment. That was a bit of a downer. But then my lovely smiley boy arrives into the arrivals lounge. I keep saying lounge. Arrivals area. There's nothing lounge about that place. It's quite brutalistic. But he arrives there and just all my concerns and worries dissipate. We have a lovely reunion and everyone was on the verge of applause. They loved it so much. It was like the beginning scene of Love Actually. Everyone was very invested in our love story. And he got his flowers and I kept saying to him, no, I'll carry the case, you carry the flowers. I don't want people to think that I've bought flowers for myself or you got flowers for me. I want people to know that you are the one who has been bought flowers. I want everyone here to be aware of what this dynamic is. So I was carrying the ridiculous fucking hard guitar case, by the way, not soft guitar case, and you just can't carry it at any angle that is normal and comfortable. Just whatever you're doing with it feels wrong. It's also rammed full of stuff so that, you know, there's been extra room for t-shirts and whatnot, so that thing is packed to the gunnels. It is heavy. So I was carrying that and making sure that my beautiful princess boy was carrying his sunflowers, and that was all well and lovely until yesterday when we had to throw them away because they've gone rotten now, but not as rotten as the last bouquet, so an improvement on last time. Okay, let's see if I can maintain this energy for the whole time. Who knows whether that is actually achievable. Anyway, the downside of Kieran coming back is that he brought with him a lovely, fantastic cold. I'm talking the full kit and caboodle. He had the chesty cough, he had the sore throat, he had the bung nose, he had the lot. And he was kind enough to impart that cold to me, which is so nice and also thoughtful. And he'd mostly been fine over the course of his time in America and Canada. I think just because the adrenaline was keeping it rolling over, and so he was doing all the gigs and then traveling so much and staying up so late and all these kinds of things. They eventually caught up with him right at the moment when he was on the plane, and then he landed, and then I got it immediately because obviously I'm not gonna not snog him. That's crazy. I have to snog him. He's been away for 3 weeks, and as you can hear, my nose got bunged up saying the word snog there. That is not, you know, in it, I hate that when it gets like trapped in your nose. Sorry, this is so gross. It gets trapped in your nose and you're like 2 tickets to Nottingham. I hate that. Anyway, snog. He didn't have much time to recuperate, even though he is quite good at recuperating. He's good at doing his steams and having his Jakeman's, having his lozenges, having his nose sprays, all the rest of it. He's quite good at self-administering things to get better quickly. I don't have that particular quality in my personality, and we will come on to that in due course. But he did not have much time to recuperate, as I say, because it was straight from getting home. We're off to Tain. I've never been to Tain before. It's the northernmost I've ever been, I think. It's further north than Skye, and it is a wild west. Oh my god, it's wild. And I'm from a rural setting, as we know. I am from rurality. I'm from a village, and I understand that when you don't have a lot of reasons to go wild, you don't have a lot of club nights and social events and whatever else, then that energy can kind of build and then erupt at times. I'm aware of that as someone who has grown up in a village. Tain is very similar to that, and they had this gala and it was absolutely wild. Everyone was raucous. It was a riot to be a part of, but was I scared? Yeah, a little bit. And there was a situation, and I'm not going to give too many details about it for legal reasons, but there was someone who's being quite prejudicial in their language, and I had one of the coolest moments in my life when I rose out of my chair and got in this, it was a man obviously, got in this man's face and was yelling at him and telling him to fuck off and watch his fucking mouth and all the rest of it, which is so not me. And this was like beginning of the night. This is what I'm talking about. This is beginning of the night. I'd had half a dram at this point, and I was in his grill, and someone who witnessed it said that he thought I was going to punch him. And that felt cool to hear that, because obviously I wasn't going to, but for the purpose of this image, I like the thought that it looked like I was going to, because also I was really into self-defense classes when I was at school. We had this 6-week self-defense thing on a Friday afternoon, and the guy who was running it, he was so great, and he also made a real point of making it clear that a lot of these self-defenses are specifically for the girls in the group, because we're more likely to need them to defend ourselves, considering our body mass is going to be more likely smaller. We're going to be usually a smaller height. There's all these factors to bear in mind where you are at a sort of physical disadvantage, and you need to use what sort of skills and attributes you can to defend yourself. So he was very clear about that from the get-go, and it felt very well thought through for us. And it was a mixed gender group, but he was very attentive to that. And he also imbued us with a lot of confidence by sort of telling us stories about how he'd had various girls on I think he was a taekwondo instructor usually or something like that, and he'd had girls that he'd taught who had been far stronger than any of their male counterparts, and they'd had, a better kick, a better punch, better stamina, all these kinds of things. So we never sort of thought of ourselves as being weak going into it, it was really well done, really well thought through. And he took a particular shining to me because I had a quote unquote roundhouse like a mule, and I still think about that all the time. If I'm in any kind of situation where I need to use my physicality to get myself out of a pickle, I've got that roundhouse in my back pocket like a mule. I'm going to take someone out one of these days, and this is maybe the closest I've got. But as I say, it didn't go past words, but I just felt very cool in that moment. Oh, yeah, I felt like a rock star. And that was, as I say, at like 7 p.m. This was really early on in the night, and it just got wilder for there. The highlight of the evening for me was getting to go on stage because I love attention. Yes, everybody. And it became Kieran's birthday at midnight, and I had planned ahead for this, and I had bought a cake, which is not his favorite kind of cake, but it's similar to it, because his favorite kind of cake is a specific Greek cake that's like orange and honey. And I found a cake that was orange and honey, but it's obviously like a sponge that has been soaked in honey. So it's not the same thing. Whereas this Greek one, I can't even describe what the texture is like. It's bordering on sort of honeycomb. It's very like gelatinous and almost like having cells rather than being spongy. It's so lovely and just really syrupy and drowned in this orange and honey syrup. My mouth's getting so excited that I can't speak anymore. It's really delicious. So the next best thing was having something that is the same flavor but a different consistency, and I put all the candles in it, and I came up on the side of the stage and sang happy birthday, and I'd organized this with Jared beforehand, and that felt really cool to come on stage. And then we all took a bite out of the cake. Didn't have any cutlery or anything. I was just sort of carrying the cake on one hand, and we were all going It didn't occur to me till afterwards that everyone's gonna have a cold now, so sorry about that Kieran and I had bites of this cake first and then passed it around to everyone else on stage. So I'm really sorry for the colds and coughs that you inevitably will have had for taking a bite of the diseased cake. And then Kieran had a very lovely birthday. We went up to his parents, and I brought presents with me so he could unwrap them. All except one, which is the one I was most excited for, that has literally only just arrived at time of recording today. And I'm fucking annoyed about it. So what it was is a retro replica of the 1978 Scotland shirt from when they went to Argentina, with the embroidery to say as such on the breast pocket area. It's a very beautiful shirt. However, it was supposed to arrive before his birthday, and it's now, his birthday was on the 5th. It's now the 15th, which is not great. And I kept emailing this company. They didn't get back to me for like a week, and I was getting so annoyed. I was like, I can't believe I've fallen for a scam. What am I, a boomer? Sorry, no generational comedy. So that was really annoying. And then now it's arrived today, and it's just slightly small. Like it fits him, but it's muscle fit, and that's not how he likes to wear his shirt. So now I'm like, fuck's sake, it's gonna be another month before I get back one that is actually his size. Anyway, we had a lovely time at his parents' house, and his sister was there, and his niece and nephew. It was just all round a very lovely time. And we played Balderdash, and I won for the first time, because usually my problem with Balderdash, well, it's a joint winner, shout out Paul. Usually what happens with Balderdash is I just go in too wordily, which that tends to bite me in the arse. And also I have what I call French menu handwriting. I always write in my cursive, and then I forget that when you're playing with kids under the age of 12, you want to write it in print so it doesn't look completely illegible. I'm doing my full like Jane Austen character writing a letter type handwriting, and that is not legible to most people, let alone to kids. So that also isn't great. And my other problem is sometimes I go too on the nose. Like I did one is, you know, when they give you a date and you have to make up something that might have happened on this date, and I wrote something about the Enigma machine, and Kieran's dad was like, I just feels a bit too on the nose, and I was like, fuck, I thought I was being so clever. You can't be too clever in this game. That's the problem. But for the first time, I did actually get a joint win. So that is a huge dub for the poddo. Now, this was the point when I started to get a little bit sniffly. And I did a few things over the course of being ill, you know, becoming increasingly ill. And then it was, as we were driving back down, I was like, yeah, no, I really am feeling quite rotten now. So in the meantime, what we did was we went to a lovely berry picking farm, which is very close to Kieran's parents' house, and we had a fantastic time, and we took a genuinely huge tub. I'm talking, what is that, like 70 centimeter diameter, like a big boy tub, and we took more than one. So we had the big boy tub, and then we had, I think, 2 other smaller ones. One of them was for strawberries. We should have gone for a slightly bigger one for strawberries, because the strawberries were fucking massive, and then you can't like fill the tub because there's a lot of gappage between them when they're that big. But they were fucking delicious, and you pay your £2.50 to go in and just eat as much as you like while you're also picking them. And we both felt a little bit sicky. You think we would have seen that coming, but we really pushed ourselves. We wanted to get our £2.50 worth, but then that becomes not £2.50 worth when you take it to the till at the end and they weigh it up and they give you the actual number that you're paying. £44 for raspberries and strawberries. That's quite a lot. That is quite a lot. And the lady behind the desk, when we came in with our tubs, she openly laughed in our faces, and she was like, that is the most I've ever seen anyone bring in. No one has ever brought in a 3 kilo tub of raspberries before. That thing was rammed. Also, the other thing we didn't consider is the fact that the raspberries are very crushable, and just the weight of themselves caused them to crush. So the bottom layer was just mulch quite quickly. They didn't keep super well. On day 1, they tasted fantastic. By day 2, we were already a bit like, It's starting to go a little bit interesting. So that was slightly disappointing. But the act of just going to pick berries is so therapeutic. It was just, the sound of the wind. Sorry, big sniff. Ugh. It's just the sound of the wind going over the tunnels. It's just you and your own thoughts. And both of us were going on sort of the different lanes and picking our berries, just thinking about things. Very therapeutic, just trying to find the big ones, especially when the raspberries come off really easily. They're super ripe, they're perfect, they're ready to be eaten. Just shoving one in every 3 in your gob. It's a beautiful activity to do. We also did another really classic, lovely activity on our way down, which was to stop off at Dunkeld and Burnham, ? Possibly Burnham and Dunkeld, can't quite remember. Either way, it's where Beatrix Potter used to go to in the summer holidays, and it's the area that inspired much of her, not only children's books, but also her nature writing and illustrations and that kind of thing. And that was a very lovely thing to do. I was raised on quite a lot of Beatrix Potter as a child. I did a Beatrix Potter ballet in my dance school as well, and I showed Kieran a picture of me as a fox, and he didn't quite put together why I was showing him that, and I was like, the fox from Beatrix Potter. And then we got there and I showed him the thing, and he was like, oh, okay, bit weird. Beatrix Potter ballet, by the way, is quite weird. If you've not seen it, have a look at the TikTok, because it's mad. Because they, rather than just like being visibly human with, maybe a pair of ears on and a tail, the suggestion of being an animal, that kind of thing, maybe what you'd expect, especially with like Swan Lake, where she's, very clearly not a swan. They've gone the full like massive headpiece, great big arms, the full like fursona suit for the Beatrix Potter ballet. And you'd think also, if you're wearing that much weight and heat as a costume, that maybe they tone down the dancing. No. Have a look at, I want to say Squirrel Nutkin doing the most extravagant jump routine, or the sooties. Oh, crazy. How do you do that? That must be exhausting. It's beautiful to behold though, but it is weird and jarring. Also, while we're on the topic, if you haven't searched it already, have a look at Shostakovich's The Nose, I want to say. I hope I'm getting that right. Tap routine with people dressed in massive nose mascot suits. Great stuff. And we'll come back onto more mascot stuff later on. Don't you worry. Now, the Beatrix Potter experience was great for me because I was raised on it. Kieran wasn't so much, so this was slightly more alien, but we still had such a lovely time. And the lady gave us the books that have been designed for children to enjoy the space, which, by the way, is just a sort of exhibition space inside. And then there's a garden, and you kind of go around, and they have various pillars and just little signposts and whatever, giving information about Beatrix Potter. And then there's like, interactive games. So in the book, there's a specific word you're looking for, just a bit of comprehension test. And then you're also trying to count these like little, I don't even know what they're made of. There's just these little pictures of laundry items that I suppose they've gone missing, and Mrs. Tickywinkle's looking for them to put on her laundry line. So you have to sort of find them, and they'll be pinned up in the trees or, hanging around a corner or the rest of it. They're all hidden. Now, we have a combined age of 29 plus 24, which is 53. Yeah, we have a combined age of 53. We couldn't finish that task. We could not find those final bits of laundry. Try as we might. We went round, we did a double take, we could not find it. And then we spent so long trying to find all the laundry that when we went back inside, they'd actually closed the front desk. They closed the exhibition centre, and it was just like the cafe bit that's connected to the library that was still actually open. And we were like, what the fuck? We wanted to get our stickers, our Beatrix Potter stickers for completing the task, because we did actually complete like the code thing at the end, because you have to collect all the words, and then the words correspond to various things, blah, blah, blah. And then you're using it to unlock this code. We'd done that. We hadn't found all the laundry, but we'd done the code thing, and if you finish that, you get a sticker. Stay with me, you get a sticker. So I wanted a sticker. Kieran wanted the sticker even more than me, in spite of the fact that he's not a Beatrix Potter child. He was just really invested in this, or maybe he just really likes stickers. And bless them, the person who was behind the desk at the cafe was like, just give me 5 minutes, let me sort out this flat white, and then I'll go and hunt for the stickers for you. And then snuck round behind the desk to bring us both stickers, and that was very nice. And now I have the Beatrix Potter sticker on my phone next to my rat bag Melon Sam sticker. I hope you can see that. Oh, who's emailing me? Hang on. What I will say, however, is I think the Beatrix Potter experience focused quite a lot on her relationship with just this random man, which I understand for the reason that Beatrix Potter's not from Dunkeld and Burnham. She's from London, but she spent a lot of time up there. So they're obviously having to really ham up the reasoning for having a centre there. And one of the connections is the fact that she had a friendship with a local man who was a postman, but also was a mycologist, ? Interested in fungus, as was she. They had a shared love of mycology. I think I'm saying that right. And they would compare notes, and she would send her illustrations and he sent back his feedback. So they had this sort of very collaborative relationship when it came to the study of various fungi. To each their own. But I would say there comes a point where you're like, I think we've heard too much about the fungi. I don't think that's why anyone's here. I don't think everyone's coming to the the Beatrix Potter exhibition in Dunkeld and Burnham just to learn about mycology. I think they're here because of Squirrel Nutkin and Peter and Benjamin and Mrs. Tiggywinkle and the Tailor of Gloucester and all the rest of them, Jeremy Fisher et al. So there was a bit too much mycology for my tasting, but I appreciated it nonetheless within the grand scheme of things. If honestly, I think one of the things that is missing is just talking about the stories themselves a bit more, talking about the Mrs. Tiggywinkle story, blah, 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 because I've not heard those stories in a long time and I've kind of forgotten what the narrative and the lore of the various characters is. Peter Rabbit is just, to the best of my remembrance, him stealing from Mr. McGregor and then losing his jacket as he tries to escape. I think that's it. It's also very sweet. She wrote it for her governess's son who wasn't feeling well. Love the thought that one of the most beloved characters and afterwards beloved series franchises of British literature has come from someone who wasn't feeling very well and her sending him a lovely present. I think that's really nice and sweet. But they didn't go into the stories enough. It's similar to my complaint about the Barbie exhibition when I was like, you've not really talked about like the Barbie films. People love the Barbie films. Feels like the thing that people love and the reason why a lot of people, particularly in my age bracket, are going to be here has not really been covered. You know, the story and the nostalgia, that kind of thing. I think it was too biographical. But also they've only just opened or rather they've only just released the kind of children's book aspect of it. So, you know, I think it's all new stuff and they're going to be chopping and changing and learning from feedback. So there is my feedback. I think I would like to know more about the fictional animal creatures themselves. Oh, my nose is starting to go again. So that was on our drive down and I was getting really quite ill on the drive, and then we met up with Maddie and I was like, oh, I look like shit. Maddie's so cool and I look like absolute shit. God damn. You know, so we want to make friends with a cool person. Every time you see them, you look like a greased up, greaseball, greasy grease girl. That's not what you want. And I was just feeling rotten, couldn't really breathe through my nose super well at that point. And then I woke up the next day, Wednesday, which was when I was going to record the podcast episode, and I was like, I'm sick. I'm poorly, I'm ill, I'm sick, and I can't breathe. And I really panic when I can't breathe. I'm such a miserable poorly person. I can't soldier through. And I saw but just completely by chance, whilst I was ill, I watched the episode of Veep where I was about to call her Selena is really ill and she's like in bed doing her voice notes to everyone. She can't really speak. She's got Gary really close and is using him as kind of a mouthpiece. That episode where she's just really pushing through could not be me. When I'm poorly, even a little bit poorly, I feel so sorry for myself. I am inconsolable. And so I was bedridden and I was annoyed and I was getting bored and I was like, oh fuck, this is going to ruin my sleep as well because I'm not going to be able to get any sleep because all I've done is sit in bed. So Kieran was like, just go and sit in the living room just to change it up. And then I was learning to play video games in there. But what was one I liked? I played one that was fun. And then I played some I didn't really like. The little bookshop one, that was rubbish. Oh, the one where you're a hole. That was quite fun. Is it called Donut Town? Donutville? Something like that. The whole point of the game is that you're just like the sinkhole and you have to swallow up increasingly large objects in this town. Very stupid game, but that kept me occupied for an hour. And then I did actually get a not bad amount of sleep, if not the quality of sleep wasn't fantastic. And I was getting really stressed about it getting in my head. I was like, I really need to get this good sleep because it's going to be a big day tomorrow. And it was a big day. And I was really ill throughout the whole thing. And that was not ideal. And I was getting so stressed about not putting my best foot forward. In the train-in, I was sweating my arse off. I brought in a jacket because it's Scotland, you have to bring a jacket with you. You never know what's going to happen with the weather. It could change at any moment. So I brought in my new cool jacket from the Barras that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago that I definitely didn't get if you're listening to this and you're my mother. But it was trapping heat and I was like, fuck, get this off. And then even when it was off, I was like, still trapping heat. And I just had this sheen over my face. It was really disgusting. And I was like, I'm about to meet, 16 new people who are going to be really cool and we're all going to influence each other's lives in the next couple of weeks. And I was getting so stressed about having this sheen and looking gross and feeling gross and not being able to speak and my nose being annoying and coughing all the time, really horrible cackly crackly cough that you just want to spit it out. Hate it. And just feeling rotten, not feeling like I was on top of my game, like feeling quite dulled within myself, lost my shine, don't feel like I can just like bah, boo, bah. There's nothing like improv-y. That's why I don't know how anyone could ever do improv when they're sick. I just feel like I can't be spontaneous at all. I don't have a spontaneous cell in my body when I feel sick. I was getting really stressed about it. And it, you know what, it did hold me back in a lot of respects. I think I would have put myself out there way more, but I just spent so much time worrying about not being well. I think that did detract a bit. And by the way, the thing that I'm talking about, I was like not saying it because it's like a big reveal, but then I've gone too far now and I need to also reveal what it is. Commonwealth Games training for the presenting side of things, because I am a pioneer host, everybody. I am part of the Pioneer Progress Productions cohort for this year, which is a very esteemed thing, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. And it was, you know what, one of the best things about the training thing was meeting someone who did this whole program like 6 years ago, and seeing what's happened to him since, what he's been offered, people approaching him, and the opportunities that he's had. That really excites me. So I'm looking forward to what happens afterwards, but more importantly, I'm looking forward to what happens within the next 2 weeks, because the Commonwealth Games are starting imminently, or rather is starting imminently. I need to get used to that, because that's part of the style guide to refer to it as a singular and not a plural. That's on me. Commonwealth Games is starting imminently, and I will be on the bowls from the beginning until the end, from the 23rd until the 2nd, and tickets are available. You can come and watch the bowls. It'll be a fantastic time. I'm gonna have so much fun. Also, make sure if you want to come and see me specifically, I'm on in the afternoon, not as my parents thought in the morning, so we're gonna have to fix that ticket situation, but I think that is in the process of being fixed, fingers crossed. So this whole training situation was about various things. It was the kind of practicalities of being on screen and delivering the information, and also the thing that we were all most worried about, which is having an in-ear. I've never had an in-ear before. I don't think anyone in the group had. Maybe someone did, not sure, but it's the thing, the thing that literally goes in your ear, and it allows your producer to do your countdown for you, tell you the amount of seconds. It's hard. It's really hard. What's easier is when you hear the countdown and the other person's speaking, because you're doing an interview and you're holding the microphone to them, then it's fine. It's when you're mid-speech and suddenly you hear 30 or 15. That makes you panic. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know I am going to get better at it. It's just going to be a muscular thing, It's going to be something I get wrong the first couple of times. Maybe I'll finish slightly too early, a couple of seconds too early. Maybe I'll be scrambling to get in the last 10 seconds. But it's something that I'm going to get better at over time, and I'll have plenty of opportunities over the next fortnight. And I'm excited to get better at that, because that's a practical skill that, how else am I going to rehearse that, It's not like you just have the opportunity to use in-ears all the time. This is a real learn on the job situation. So I am excited about that, but I think that certainly is the thing we were all most scared about. I'm also slightly worried, can't lie, that my ears are a bit small. This was a problem that we found for quite a lot of us there, is that we have remarkably small ear holes. So I'm going to have to get like plasters or something to stick the actual wire to my neck to make sure it's not coming out, because I'm worried I'm going to be like ramming my finger in my ear the whole time trying to keep the in-ear inside. But I did better with it than I thought I was going to on my go. Granted, there were two of us doing a sort of joint hosting thing at that time. It was me and this fabulous girl called Mercy. So it was a bit easier when there's two of us. When it's just you, I think that is quite stressful. And I'm also glad that they didn't make me do too many practical things in front of everyone on day one when I was feeling genuinely really rotten. And I had to excuse myself at one point because I was like, I just feel so ill. My nose is so full. I was also really desperate for a wee at that point. I'd not factored that in because I was drinking so many fluids. When you're ill and you're drinking tons of fluids, drinking so many fluids, and I had like 7 pisses per day at the centre. That's way more than usual. I could not stop. I was an absolute water feature. I was a Wasserspieler. Ich war ein Wasserspieler. I was a water feature. I could not stop. Can anyone tell I just learned the word water feature in German? I couldn't stop, and that was also quite embarrassing to be constantly pissing like an absolute drain. The sessions themselves were super informative, super fun. And you know what else is so nice is everyone who is on this program, all the other pioneers, are so wonderful. Not just the pioneers as well, because it's the pioneer host for each sort of session that you have at the games. Bear in mind there's the 10 sports, and then you have afternoon sessions, morning sessions. So for some sports it's just one person because there'll be one session for the day. For some there's 2, so for bowls there's morning and afternoon. I'm on the afternoon. So you have your pioneer host per session, and then you also have a professional host. I've got Gully Singh, who is super cool, and I was already kind of aware of him, so that's really fun. So I shout out Gully. And then you have your producer, and you have your AP, and you have various other people on the team, and that's going to be super exciting to meet those other people. I did get to meet quite a lot of the team already because the person who was running this whole workshop training thing was the guy who's going to be my specific producer, the afternoon bowls producer. So that felt like an absolute strike of gold, an absolute win. And what's the word I'm looking for? Jackpot? No. What's the bullseye? Yeah, that's it. For me, it felt like a very personalized experience. So I got to work with a guy I'm going to be seeing most days for the next 2 weeks. So that is already very exciting for me. Also in the training, I got to meet one of my genuine heroes, Finny the unicorn. Oh, you guys. You guys, I didn't realize this about myself, but I get the biggest buzz off of meeting mascots. I genuinely, I was like, what a cringe attribute to have as a person. I love meeting a mascot in real life. Because you remember when I went to Blackpool and fucking Gromit was there and I got so giddy. I was like, I'm meeting actual Gromit. This is crazy. Obviously not Gromit, and also heightened by the fact that the person who was in the suit was like laughing the whole time and was not following the set style guide for playing Gromit, because he was being quite flirty and he was like giving me loads of kisses and cuddles and pushing Kieran away and pointing at my ring finger going, why aren't you married yet? All that kind of jazz from Gromit. But I was getting such a buzz off of interacting with Gromit. I really loved it, and I'm so excited to interact with Finny in the Commonwealth Games. I can't wait. Finny is such a cool mascot to begin with, because all the decisions that were made about Finny's design are so sweet and well thought through, because they got loads of children from the Glasgow area involved, and they said to them, you know, what images do you think really define Glasgow? What are the visual identity clues of the city? And there's so much thought that has gone into it. So then Finny's horn is a cone. Obviously we now know Boston's full of cones now from the Tartan Army putting cones on every statue. So she's got a cone. She's got little tattoo stars, which are from the barras outside the barrel and ballrooms, the ballroom singular. They have these like star neon lights outside. So Finny's got little stars everywhere. That's really cute. And then pink and purple mane and tail, because that's what colour the hydra gets lit up. So there's all these lovely characteristics. It's really sweet, but also Finny is so full of beans and energy. Wowie, you can see why Finny is on a like 30 minutes on 30 minutes off situation, because that is a lot of energy required to be constantly that on it, jumping about, doing dancing. And you also, what I didn't really think about, it sounds really obvious to say, but obviously the mascots can't talk, so you are relying entirely on charades, and that's quite fun. It's quite fun to do the whole like charade game in front of everyone with Finny and kind of work out what Finny's saying in real time. It's quite a like neat and silly and sweet activity. So I'm looking forward to doing a bit of that. I'm really looking forward to having Finny come into the bowls. And we're also discussing like what Finny's physical capabilities are, you know, can we play bowls with her, all these kinds of things. So I'm looking forward to taking Finny on, and I got a lovely couple of photos with her, one where she's covering my face, which is hilarious. So love you, Finny. Then this weekend, we went home back to my house in England, in Leicestershire, where it was fucking boiling. It was so warm. The heat wave continued down there, and I was very glad to get in the pool, even though it was green. The paddling pool has gone green over time, and we couldn't quite work out how to fix that. So it's fine. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about standing in some green. I've stood in worse, you know. There are plenty of locks and stuff I've been in, and there's been all sorts of weird grotty stuff at the bottom, and my feet have felt worried for touching all the weird spindly things. So at this point, I feel like I'm desensitized to it. I'm perfectly happy to be in a green paddling pool. But I had such a lovely time down there. It was so nice to just sit, hang out with the dogs and the cat, because I miss hanging out with my animals down there. And Max was home. That was really nice. Max has kind of moved into Grandma's annex. It's kind of become a bit of a lad pad. He's got a big old neon sign saying I licked it so it's mine, and he's got his table football right in the centre of the room. It's become like the Joey and Chandler apartment, which is quite sweet that he's, you know, he's taken the space and he's got a space of his own. I think that's really good for him. So we had the back of the annex open, and we were playing, you know, Radio 1 out there, which is an acquired taste. I can't lie. I don't think I've ever been nor ever will be necessarily a Radio 1 type person, but I can appreciate it for a summer's day. And I sat and I read my book, and Kieran was there too. He's reading his book, and Max and Jess hanging out, and it's just nice. It's just like, you know, you just have a lovely day. Do you know, you just have a lovely day. I just had a lovely day. I had a lovely day up here in like April. I think when it first got really sunny and we sat outside and read books, and I had a can of room temperature tenders because that's what temperature I prefer. And I was just so overwhelmed with having a nice day that I burst into floods of tears. And that's quite a common thing for me. And I could well have done it this weekend, but my tear ducts were quite dry because of the heat, obviously drying out my tear ducts. I just had a lovely day. And then that evening we went out to Kilworth House, which I love. Guys, get involved in Kilworth House. Oh, get to know about it. It's so good. Open air theatre. which is exactly what you want in this temperature. And you could get all the breeze through. It was so nice. Because here's the thing. Being a woman who loves theatre in a relationship with a man who is 6'4" and who feels the temperature very intensely, that's a bit of a struggle for him. He doesn't really fit in a lot of indoor theatre seats. He's got long legs and they're always, poking into someone's back. You can't fold them in any way that will actually fit into, say, King's Theatre Glasgow type seats. His arms are squeezing in. He's got his broad back. You can't fit him into these tiny seats. It's very antiquated. Theatre seats should be more capacious. I'll say it. They should be more capacious. They also really trap the heat. So when I saw James Acaster, that was a level of heat I've never experienced before. I felt like I was being grilled alive. It was not nice. So then to have this flowing air at Guildhall House was nice. To have the space between the seats. Oh, I've never seen Kieran be able to sit in a theatre seat and not have his knees touch the seat in front. He was in absolute ecstatic ecstasy. That's not what I meant to say. He was in... What's the word? He was in raptures. That was it. He was in absolute raptures at the ability to sit in a seat and not be uncomfortable in a theatre. So it didn't even matter what the show was. The show could have been anything. The show could have been vaginal monologues. The show could have been a fucking 1-star horrible fringe stand-up show. It could have been koalas and kebabs again. It could have been anything and he would have enjoyed it because of how comfortable he was. And that was really nice for me to relax and not worry that he's having the worst time ever. And that was lovely. And what we saw was Anything Goes, which I went into blind, which is really surprising because it's a tap, it's kind of a tap musical. You'd think I'd know about it. It's a classical musical. It's Cole Porter. You'd think I'd know all about it. I had no idea what the plot was going to be. And I was so surprised by it, but not for any reason that you might expect. The reason I was surprised by it is because I watched it and I was like, this is exactly like every play from the 17th century that I studied for my French literature degree. It is like any Molière play, any Regnard play. It is so exactly that, of that ilk. You got the unity of place, if not the unity of time and action. But they don't have the unity of time and action either. A lot of the time. Hang on, let me think about this. Well, they usually have the unity of time. I mean, what's unity of time? It's not in real time, but it's over the course of like literally only a couple of days. So it's still very compact. Unity of place being the boat. It's on the boat. As Anything Goes. It's on a big cruise liner. And the way that all the plot lines were so neatly tied up, you start off with all these mismatched pairs of lovers that they're not quite right. And you've got the older couple as well, which is quite a common thing. I'm thinking specifically of like, oh my God, what's it called? The Inheritance? Oh my God, what was it called? There's a Regnard play that I did in my dissertation and I talked about it so much. Is that what it's called? Le Légataire Universel. I would not have remembered that title at all. Le Légataire Universel, and also L'Avare by Molière, those ones where it's, there's the money aspect of a marriage being set up and the dowry and all that kind of thing, having a financially fruitful marriage, blah, 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 blah. And then being kind of misaligned. They're not a good match for each other. And then there's actually the lover who's the poor man. It's always poor man. And everything gets resolved in the end. And they're all like, oh, well, why don't you two get married? And they go, yeah, great, perfect. That solves that. And why don't you two get married? Yeah, great. Is that kind of neatness of the ending, a lot of the comic sensibilities, that having just like a bumbling but well-meaning posh guy, that weirdly felt very French to me, even though he was supposed to be a super, super English character. The guy who's playing that character also was doing the absolute most. He did an amazing job. The character was called... Evelyn. He was called Evelyn, wasn't he? He was sublime. There were so many moments where Kieran and I were like looking at each other howling. We were pissing ourselves. There's one bit where they're doing Blow Gabriel Blow, and the main girl, Reno Sweeney, is doing this like sexy dance routine and like big vocals. She used to play Angelica Schuyler on the West End, and her pipes are unbelievable. And she was doing her big Blow Gabriel Blow, and doing the big number, and he's in the back going, heavens to Betsy. Great, really great. And there was a running bit of him adding loads of American slang to his little notebook, and he'd written like hot pants to have a penchant for something or to be excited about something. And he comes into the room and he goes, has anyone got the hot pants to play shuffleboard? Great. And then he goes, step in it. No, that's not right. Sit on it. No, that's not right. Step on it. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense either. Great, love that. Exactly the part I want to play if I was a man approaching middle age as a comic actor. Thoroughly recommend. Love that a lot. It wasn't, it wasn't like a life-changing musical plot at all, but the music was really fun. It's very of the time. I would have liked more tap dance, but that's a criticism not of the production but of the musical itself. The fact there was only tap in Anything Goes, but the choreography in that number, next level. It was so good, because also when I'm watching tap routines, I'm trying to pick it up as I'm watching it, and that's easy enough if they're doing like the same move for a count of 8. This was like they do it for 2 and then they're off to something else, they're moving on. It was so inventive. It was constantly moving on to the next thing. It was rich, it was chock-a-block. It looked so fun to perform. I would love to learn the choreography for that production of Anything Goes. It was great. And I just, to really emphasize, the girl who played Runo Sweeney was unbelievable. She was so good. She was perfect for that role. The role she was born to play. Oh, she did such ease. She made it look so easy. Gorgeous. Loved it. Love Kilworth House. Love Kilworth House. We came back up yesterday. I'm now back up in Scotland, as you can tell, because I've got the bricks behind me. I'm up in Scotland again. And I'm going back down literally in 2 days' time. It's a quick whistle-stop tour just to get everything in order and sort myself out and get the things I need for the weekend, because it's almost bridesmaid time. That's happening this weekend. And so I need to quite urgently... I'm saying this and looking in the monitor, and actually this combination of lights and cameras and setting makes my hair look not as bad as it actually is. I've also curled it, and that's hiding a lot of the damage because you can't see what the ends actually look like. But my hair is in dire need. I've not had it cut since October, which I know is bad, because for day 1 of journalism school, maybe like day 3 of journalism school, we were sent out to like just speak to people on the street and find out information about whatever, just as a practice for like approaching strangers. And I remember one of the girls went out and went to a hairdresser's, and Santa had her haircut and was like interviewing the hairdresser while having her haircut. And the hairdresser said to her that people don't realize you should have your haircut every 12 weeks. I'm not doing that. That's quite a lot. Because also all I want is for all my hair to be the same length. I want it to be the same length all the way around. I hate face framing bits. I hate face framing bits. They're so annoying. I hate that that's like the default now. It's annoying. I can't get it in my plait, can't get it in my ponytail. It's always falling down. It's always at the length of my mouth and going in my mouth. Hate that. And I've been trying to grow out these front pieces for years. And then in 2023, some idiot cut them back in, even though I explicitly told him not to. And I went home and cried afterwards. Worst hair appointment of my life. I went in there and I was like, please don't maybe make it too blonde. I really don't want to be too blonde. I just want subtle highlights with low lights in, if that's what you think. I've had low lights before and that worked out well. So I would suggest low lights based on that. And they didn't do low lights, just made it full blonde and gave me face framing bits, and I went home and cried. I was really, really fucked off. That I just don't like them. They're really annoying and they take so long to grow out. I just want all my hair to be the same length. So all I'm asking for is like round. I'm not asking for layers. I'm not asking for bangs. I'm not asking for a wolf cut, anything complicated, just hair all the same length all the way round. And because I'm so picky about it, I have just found one woman that I really like in Oakham and stuck with her through thick and thin, and my god, have those prices gone up, which makes me feel a little bit sick. So for ages I was like, I'm gonna have to like organize it when I come down, and I've just not done it. Now like the weddings this weekend, I really actually do need to get my hair done, because it's not a color that I enjoy anymore. Again, in these lights it looks a fantastic color. That's not what it looks like in real life. It looks really quite dark in real life, and I don't mind the color itself. Okay, I misspoke when I said I didn't like the colour. I do like the colour. I just wish there was a slightly more variation. I wish there was a little bit more lightness around the face and a bit more depth and variation of shades of the same colour. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not, nothing crazy. I've already got my reference photo so that we can avoid all disaster. Point of reference for everyone that can see. This is my favourite hair appointment that I've been to. That's exactly what I wanted. Is that not in focus very much? That's what I wanted, which is variation and lightness around the front and keeping my natural colour. Love that. Here's what I did not like. Bright blonde with face framing bits. Rotten work. You can't actually see them because they're curly, but trust me, they put face framing bits in. I have a real thing about going to the hairdresser now where I really want to be clear and definitive in what it is that I want, and I don't know that I back myself to really communicate that very well, because also the guy who ignored me and gave me the front pieces and whatever, he spent the whole hair appointment being like, well, you're so British. You just relax. You don't need to keep apologising all the time. I think you just take it easy. Go easy on yourself. Just relax a bit more. This man telling me to relax and then gave me the exact haircut I told him, please do not give me this haircut. So, no wonder I'm a little bit fraught about it. But it's hard to back yourself, especially when they've started. Because he just did a technique I'd never seen before. Sorry, siren going off. Where he was like lifting up and chopping it. And then it was only afterwards I was like, oh, he was doing layers. I just never seen anyone do that technique. I was like, oh, that's a bit of a different technique. Didn't clock that he was doing something that I'd specifically asked him not to do. Because I've never seen anyone actually execute that technique before. Anyway, all this to say that I have bitten the bullet and I have booked at a new salon up here. It's in Glasgow and it seems lovely. And I am vain enough to admit, no, I am woman enough to admit that I'm vain in that I think I wouldn't want to go to a salon that didn't look pretty. I do want to feel like relaxed and like they put a lot of thought and effort into the interior design, because there's a part of my brain that's like, well, if the interior design's nice, then the hair appointment's going to be fantastic. And so I have chosen a place that does look really nice, and I had to go in there today to get a patch test. Is that actually still on me? I think it's rubbed off now. I had to get a patch test, obviously I'm completely fine. So that is tomorrow, so we'll see whether I like it. I really hope I do. I finished a book last week. I've been so slow this month. I've really not been on it because I've been here, there and everywhere, but I finally finished Lady Macbeth, which I texted Lily Lefko about, and I was like, oh, you recommended this to me, didn't you? I think of you every time I read this. She was like, I have never heard of that book in my life. And so I am now worrying about who it actually is that recommended that book to me, because I enjoyed it and I wasn't expecting to. I thought it was going to be real cringe fangirl lip service to Shakespeare that was going to piss me off, and actually it wasn't. It was so thoroughly researched. It gave me so much more information I wasn't aware of, and crucially has really changed the way I think about Lady Macbeth. So it's Lady Macbeth ad. Did I actually say the title? It's called Lady Macbeth ad, which is her actual name, Macbeth ad, or rather it's her husband's name. Her name is Grua or Gruoch, depending on whether we're talking Gaelic or something, whatever. What language were they speaking? I've lost track of what language they're speaking. There's one point where they referred to a place as St Andrews, and I was like, I don't think they would have been calling it St Andrews, because we're talking about the Picts here, aren't we? Talking about pagans. They're not calling it St Andrews. But that was my only complaint of it, and I was like, well, realistically, what else would they have called it? Because it is important that you have an idea of the geography in your head. So otherwise you just have to do a footnote. That kind of takes you out of it to be like, by the way, this is St Andrews. That's by the by. It's such an interesting story because there is not a moment's rest at any point. It's from one moment to the next. She's constantly on the move or allied to someone else or trying to form an allegiance somewhere else or being kidnapped. Like, the moments of repose are so few and far between. She's always worrying about what her next move is, who she's going to marry, who she should keep on side, who she should reveal secrets to. It's just unrelenting. And I think that's something that I never considered when I'm thinking about Macbeth and thinking about a lot of plays in general, because it's difficult to communicate a sense of dynamism going into act 1 scene 1. It's always going to feel static at the beginning because people have to enter an empty stage space and then create action. But actually, we're coming off the backdrop of there always being something going on. She originally was going to be married to Macbeth, and then she was going to be married to Duncan, and then she was going to be married to Gilcommon. I had no idea how to pronounce that guy's name, but that was what her first husband was called. And then he gets killed, and then she's possibly going to be Duncan's concubine, and then she's married to Macbeth out in secret. So it's just constantly going. She's had different relationships with everyone. It also changes how I think about her in relation to Duncan. I'd never really thought about how they might be connected in any way. And it's like historical fiction is based on truth. The whole thing, there's very little that is kind of invented. She's really thought through what we actually do know about the life and movements of these various characters, and so there's very little that actually is invented. And also her connection to magic is really interesting because she was pagan and Pictish originally, and then has been brought into this Christian world. So there is that background to her, maybe a greater acceptance of the witches and their omens, this kind of thing. It was so interesting, and now I'm like, I want to see a production of Macbeth so I can think about this in an entirely new way. Yeah, I love it. Something else I think it does really well is is having an unreliable narrator that you don't notice is unreliable, which I think is the most impressive thing. And when I'm reading those sorts of narrators, I'm like, fuck, I could never create that. I could never be subtle enough to create an unreliable narrator that you don't even think about being unreliable. And then you're like, you know, one of her allies will speak and say, oh, I think you're going a step too far. And then you come out and you're like, yeah, obviously she shouldn't kill a person. That's Matt. She shouldn't go after this guy, chase him down and try and kill him single-handedly. That's nuts. You know, it really brings you along for the ride. I'm always in awe of a successfully created unreliable narrator, and that's great. What I then moved on to is 100 Years of Solitude, which was recommended to me by Brian, which is such a rogue, shout out Brian, really rogue recommendation, which apparently is the crowning glory of Hispanic literature. I don't feel like I get it. I'm like 60% of the way through it. I just don't feel like I'm getting it. I don't really get what the point of okay, so here's the thing with magical realism can be a thing that I really enjoy when I understand what the purpose of including the magic is. And often it's for a moral purpose, and I enjoy when it's for a moral purpose. I can kind of get what the meaning is. I'm not really understanding the morals of any of the implementations of magic in this narrative, of which there are many. I'm just not really getting that. It's also such a confusing book to read because everyone in it is either called Aureliano or Jose Arcadio. There are only 2 names in this book, and there are like 30 characters. They all share those 2 names. It is so confusing to remember who is who because it's the same family through various generations. I can't keep up. I don't know who is who. It's very stressful. And I said to Peanut about it, and she was like, there is a Netflix series that actually helped me a lot to watch it while reading it, because then I could put a face to the name and isolate the different Aurelianos and Jose Arcadios, and that helped me understand it a bit more. I think that's what I might have to do, because I'm not really enjoying it because I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not understanding it. You know, what's the point? What's the point? I'm not really understanding why the writer wrote it, which sounds like a stupid person thing to say. But is it about like human foibles? Is it supposed to be about, you know, the history of Colombia in this period? Because it kind of is. Yeah, there's not a lot of psychology to it as well, which I think that feels like the big thing that's missing is I'm not able to get inside these characters' heads and understand what they're thinking so much. There's very little dialogue, very little psychological insight. There's not really any what's called free and direct discourse. I had to translate that because I was going discours indirect libre in my head. Free indirect discourse, not a lot of it. So I'm like, I'm not clinging to these characters because I'm not thinking what they're thinking. I'm not really getting an insight into them, and they're all meshing into one because they're all named the same. So I'm just not getting it. But me being me, I can't not finish a book. I don't DNF anything. I have to get through this. And I said to myself, I'm going to read bigger books at the minute because I set myself the target of 30 and I finished that before the end of June. So I was like, let's go for the big ones now. I'm not working towards any target anymore with how many books to read this year. So let's go for the big boys. And this one, it's not huge. It's like 420 pages, but it's bigger because I was reading a lot of like 250s. So, you know, pushing myself a bit more, but it's come back to bite me on the arse because now I'm just trudging. I'm doing a lot of trudging, and that's whatever. Anyway, there are plenty of exciting things coming up in my life in the imminent future, not least of which is the Commonwealth Games, which I will begin presenting at on the 23rd and finish on the 2nd of August. It's going to be a wild ride. I'm so excited for the bowls. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. And I need to plan what my outfit's going to be because that's quite a lot of outfits. Not all the sports are stretched for that long. I think this is the longest running of all the sports. So I need to come up with quite a lot of outfits that are suitable for moving about, not making the cameras go funny and wibbly by being heavily patterned, and are an acceptable colour and length. So I need to figure out what I'm going to wear. Also, ones that don't have slogans, because I was going to wear my Scott Girl summer one, so I can't wear that. No, that's fine. I'll find something else. What else? I am on Limit Radio on Tuesdays from 10 to 12. Do not miss that. Tune in to listen to my dulcet tones talk about what's going on around the world every Tuesday of the week. Every Tuesday of the ever. Every Tuesday ever. I'm losing all sense. My mouth is going so numb. I 1 week off podcasting and I lose my mouth feel. I'm also going to be at the Edinburgh Fringe. I'm going to be doing flyering for Brass Tacks Comedy most afternoons. So I will be in the area. I would love to hang out and also go and see any shows that people are watching. If you know of any people who are going, whose shows need audience members, Big Guy loves to be in the audience. So let me know what they're doing and when, and I will hopefully go and see them. Or if you are doing a show yourself, the same applies. Or if you want to hang out and get a beer, a cold one, let me know, because I love to drink beer with friends. Okay, let's move on to my dog fire hydrant. I've just written me getting childishly excited at a sport. I thought this said excoriating mascot, sporting mascot. Yeah, did I say mascot then? Mascot is one of those words that feels weird to say in a southern accent. It feels like it should be mascot. Yeah, I think getting excited at mascot is such a classic thing. And boy did I, and I wasn't expecting to really get that much of a buzz off Finny, but wow, love Finny. I also I heard a word on Radio 4 literally on the drive over here that I've added to my words, and it's sporulating. Maybe sporulating. I can't remember how the lady pronounced it, which is awkward because it was in audio form. And it's to produce or release spores or to convert into spores. And it was a Radio 4 program about zombie ant disease that is caused by fungus, which gotta love Radio 4. They really are just teaching you something every single day. Sporulating. All that remains for me to say is that I hope you have a fantastic week. Thank you for listening to Series 1. Thank you for recommending it to your friends. Thank you for commenting on it. Thank you for liking it. Thank you for following the social media account. Please continue to do all of the above, because I want to do something exciting next. I want to continue to use this vessel, the Podscast, for something new and interesting later on down the line after the Commonwealth Games and the Edinburgh Fringe are out of the way. So please thank you for your support. And also thank you for your support. And I can't wait to see you soon with whatever I end up doing in Series 2 of this. And all that remains for me to say after all that, which had remained for me to say, is this. I'm Poddy Wilson. This is the Podscast, and I love you.